drew them off. So I'm sure you're wondering. I'm sure you've been waiting with bated breath to see what I've been doing. Not. Yeah, well, I bought myself some new sketchbooks because my history with sketchbooks is fairly disastrous. No matter how good the quality of the paper, like this is beautiful stuff. I can't wait to get started on this one. I've got this terrible habit of my sketchbook will start out being all about sketching and become a note-taking place. I just can't keep the two things separate. If I've got ideas in my head from when I'm sketching, I'm going to start writing in my sketchbook, and that's the way it always goes. I've just treated myself to a number of new sketchbooks now, and I'm absolutely determined that they're going to be the type of sketchbook that, how cute is this? The type of sketchbook that you see artists brandishing on YouTube videos and on Instagram, the kind of sketchbook that has millions and millions of very perfect pages. I really want to have a go at that. I don't know if I'll keep it up, but we'll give it a try. And you can see, just like the youth, I have been sticking stickers on these. This is Balhol, very heavily ingrained paper, very nice. So I can't wait to get started on these, but at the same time I can wait, because what I've been doing is enjoying the summer, because surely that is what we should all do. Winters are very long in this country, obviously in Britain. This actually is one sketchbook where I've covered over all the scribbling and note-taking and any images I didn't draw on. I've been using it a lot too. Oh, rude lady. This is a very old sketchbook. Well, it's very old, but I think it spans about 10 years because inevitably I've got lots of different ones on the go. And as you're about to see, I'm going to see clients, I'm talking to people about the work I'm doing little bits of self-promotion, always jumping from one job to the next, and they always turned into notebooks. You go to see a client and you're sort of sketching out ideas, not so much in this one, but yeah, you're not going to carry a separate notebook with you, at least I never. So it's summertime and I've been going to the beach, enjoying the heat wave and listening to the bees. That's what I've been doing. Within the last decade or so, perhaps a little bit longer. And this is sort of the example of work that I was doing on a computer, I think Photoshop, stuff that I did for, you know, packaging and projects like that, that just got incorporated in the design work that I was doing. It's just paintings that I did. Some portrait work. These are both portraits of children of my friends. I kind of thought for a while I'll go back to offering portraits in my Etsy shop.
I never actually did that. I used to offer all sorts of things in my shop though, lots of postcards and prints. Like here, I would actually write the text on the scrolls in Photoshop.
Sorry for the noise. These are examples that I did a few years back when I was trying to figure out a slightly different way of doing line work than I had been doing. It's just practice stuff for my folio. more stuff that was available in my Etsy shop at one point. Obviously I've closed my Etsy shop quite a while ago. But, yeah, look at that evil bunny. I don't know what it is. When I draw rabbits, they always look kind of evil. I had to redo his face in Photoshop. Still look kind of evil. That actually started out as a commission for a magazine, and then they never went ahead with it. They used photo instead, and I never actually got paid. So
yeah, this is quite a good example of how I tend to work more. I'll draw something on paper in a very traditional way, put the shading in dot work or whatever, but if I make a mistake like on this eye, I can scan it in and correct that. And like with this image here, Game of Bones, just draw it flat artwork, you know, do whatever shading I want to. Again, it's just pen and ink. I think that was rotary pen. And I can scan it into the computer and colour it up. And I can try lots of different colourways, correct any mistakes, and yeah, just get a finished result that I really like.
Here, what I've found recently, I went back to the house that I grew up in, which my family is now in the process of moving out of. And there was a massive old architect's plan chest in that house that I just kept all of this work in. I haven't seen any of this stuff for about 20 odd years. So yeah, originally I was doing magic marker visuals, and that was obviously a huge way that people earned money back in the sort of mid to late 80s. That was when I first went down to London, and then I gradually started getting illustration work in magazines, you know, like beauty magazines, hair care, that kind of thing. So here's another sort of example. And I think while they're static images, I'm trying to put a bit of life in them with the line work. Here are some more examples of stuff that went into sort of teen and sort of youth magazines, which there used to be so many of back at that time. Obviously not something that exists anymore, but yeah, I mean, you can start to see I'm trying to introduce sort of like a movement animated kind of quality to it.
Yeah, and this is like Just 17. I used to do stuff for them quite regularly. Oh, I've gone really quiet now because Mr. George here, who's my constant companion whenever I'm in the drawing room, was snoring so loudly, but he's quietened down now.
And for a long time, a lot of the work that I was getting were these quite sort of cartoony, caricature kind of illustrations. This was for, you know, self-promotional work. Obviously, I used to have a different surname. Yuck. So yeah, I mean, just things like this. I mean, these were actually real people that had done caricatures. So I used to get a lot of sort of corporate requests from people, you know, it's so-and-so's anniversary and they both like playing tennis, but you know, he's a lot more expert than she is. Yeah, sure. That kind of thing. More of the same here. It must have been their sort of Christmas party, I guess, and you know, they're the directors of a company, so there's an awful lot of that. You just get sent some photos and just you know, just what the actual reason for the caricature would be, and produce those. I also did quite a bit of stuff for magazines as well. Like I did a series of female comedians, which at that time were considered relatively unusual on TV. So this is Ruby Wax, and kind of had to go for that big head type look, which I'm not very keen on, to be honest, even with caricatures, even though it gives you a lot more room to actually sort of work on the face, but I'm not a fan of it. Oh, this is something completely different. I did a series of sketches for a Dublin pub guide, and these are just sort of musicians and dancers having a good old time in a pub. late at night, I think, once they've had a few Guinnesses. And back to the caricatures. This obviously went with the series on female comedians. You've got Patsy and Adina there. So we're obviously in the early 90s now. And little Dawn French being absolutely appalled by their goings on as she's the vicar of Dibley. I used to get quite a lot of free rein with what I actually used to base the cartoon around. I just get told the subjects. This is one of my favourite projects that I worked on. I had such free hand with it, it was great. And these were actually on big billboards and everything. It was for the Olympia Horse of the Year show. You can see it there, October the 3rd, 1991. So fairly old then, but we're not in the 80s anymore. Yeah, so that is the magazine. That's the magazine, Horse and Hound version of the cartoon, the final version. And then here is a slightly earlier version that I did, and a few things were changed about it. And of course, back in the day, if you gave the client a finished version like this is, and they wanted changes, you basically went literally back to the drawing board. You had to start all over again and try and hit the same expression that you had in the first one with the bits that don't want to be changed, but then obviously you'd be working on other areas that they had some issues with and having to amend those. Yeah, it just sort of depends really. I actually quite like this older version better than the one that appeared in the magazine, but kitty, so cute. And George the dog there. All boys should be called George, I think. Huge apologies if you can hear the sound of my neighbour hoovering his car for the umpteenth time, but if I wait until he's finished, I just will never do this. So that was the first, well, that was the last Horse and Hounds, Horse of the Year show illustration that I did. And there was a series of the woman who forgot to order her tickets. Before that, there was a series of different cartoons. Again, I mean, it's just me trying to get lots of interest there in the background. This was just the first version that I did of it, because I was trying to see if putting sort of shading and texture into the building itself would give a sense of depth, whereas I think we finally just decided to go with the cross hatching. It was a lot cleaner sort of version. And there's things that I don't like about it now. I'm looking at the cat there, it was quite peculiar. The horse has obviously come to a complete halt right before the fence, but the girl actually should be flying forward, whereas I've put her flying off into the distance. Her hat is coming forward. The horse there looks really peculiar. I do like the sort of caricatures I've done of various horsey types of ladies that I've seen over the years. Basically, it's envy on my part, because when I was a child, there was nothing I wanted more than a horse. Not particularly to ride, just to kind of, I don't know, read books to, things like that, just a pet. And this is my absolute favourite. I think this is that really rare thing where if you draw a lot, you'll know exactly what I mean here, but every time you look at a piece of work when you've finished it, you see all the mistakes. With this one, I'm really happy with it. I mean, even after all these years, I look at it and I just like it. I like the expression on the horse. I like the fact that the cow, I've drawn the cow from behind and he's obviously just looking up, wondering what's going on. The little bunny, for once not an evil bunny. The lady getting dragged through the mud, and she's about to go into a patch of thistles because she's forgotten to get the tickets, and her two children are absolutely sort of upset about this. I think this is another good thing when you're doing caricatures or cartoons or any illustration really. Do not have the same expression on everybody in the picture. There's a little horse in the background there. The sun looks suitably stunned. Even the cockerel weather vane on the top there, a bit stunned. So yeah, I don't know, the way it worked, the way the hatching is done on the background, but it's very clean looking. It just all came together, I think, on this one, so I'm quite proud of this. A bit of a highlight of my folio, I think, even after all these years.
So I think what I've realised through this exercise is that my work over the last 10, 15 years maybe has become very static again, very flat, very sober, if you like. It seems to have lost a lot of the sort of fun and excitement and animation, really, that it used to have years ago. And I think that's something that I'd like to regain.